What's up, guys? Welcome back to Between the Pylons. This is the first full-length first-round mock that I'm doing on this channel. 32 picks. This is my third mock draft Monday of draft season. If you have not been watching, I do draft profiles on this channel multiple times a week. I do mock draft Monday every single week. Let me know in the comments what your favorite team is, who you think they should draft, and what position group you really want your team to go after. Let's get right into the mock. 32 picks here, so I'm going to try and keep it moving on this episode. All right, very first pick. What do we have to do? We have to grab an edge rusher. I think Thibodeau is the better one over Hutchinson, but I want to switch it up today. I am actually going to take Hutchinson, and again, I am not going to die on the hill of Hutchinson versus Thibodeau. I think they're very different prospects, but they're both really, really great prospects, and I'm excited to see them. Honestly, I do believe it's going to go 1 and 2 that way, one way or the other. With the Lions up next, I'm going to go Thibodeau here. I really think the draft starts with the Texans at 3, and this time, I've gone back and forth with it. I think I'm going to give the Texans my top pick, and really, I do think the third pick in the draft is where Kenny Pickett is going to go. Kenny Pickett is the best quarterback in this class. I am sold. I've seen enough. I really believe he'll be the number 1. I think as we get through draft season, we're going to see him become the clear-cut, obvious choice as the number 1 pick. That's where I'm at with it at this point anyway. And yeah, so Kenny Pickett, I'm going to go number 3. If it's not the Texans, it's the Texans trading out to some other team. I think it's Kenny Pickett here. Let's take him with the 3rd overall pick. Now we got the Jets here. I'm going to give the Jets my best player in this class. And obviously, the 2 edge rushers are top players in this class, but to me, Kyle Hamilton is the best all-around prospect in this class. Positional value is going to have some other guys go ahead of him, obviously, but this dude can do it all. He is a true difference maker on the defense, and I do believe the Jets are going to take Kyle Hamilton here. Listen, the last time they drafted a safety in the top 6, it worked out pretty well. He became a top safety in the game, traded him, and ended up getting an extra first-round pick in this class and also a top 10 pick in this class. So we'll see how Kyle Hamilton works with the Jets. I genuinely love that pick and love that player. And then next up, we have the Giants at 5. It is clear and obvious what their biggest need in this class is, and that is offensive line. I was talking to a guy in the comments on my another mock draft Monday, and we were talking about where they should go, and he thinks we should double up on offensive linemen for the Giants. So we have the Giants here at pick 5 and pick 7. I don't want to skip ahead to pick 7, but I am going to go double offensive lineman here. First offensive lineman off the board, Evan Neal out of Alabama. I think he is an absolute stud. I think he's the dude. Let's go ahead and pick the Panthers player here, and then we'll go back to the Giants here. So with the Panthers, obviously, we have Kenny Pickett off the board. Do the Panthers need a quarterback? Yes, they do. I think I'm going to go quarterback here with the Panthers as well. I'm not sure if Matt Corral actually does go this high. I do think he is starting to become my number 2. I think right now I technically still have Sam Howell as my number 2, but I think I'm about to change that. I might have already changed that by the time I edit this video. Not sure what the graphic's gonna say, but yeah, I'm gonna take Matt Corral. I really like his skill set, and I like his overall upside. And with Matt Rule getting to a point where he's gonna become this is gonna be his 3rd year as a head coach, he's gonna need a guy to hitch his wagon to. I think in a perfect world, that's Kenny Pickett. I actually really see a scenario where the Panthers trade up to 3 to grab Kenny Pickett. I think that's honestly what's going to happen at the end of the day. I'm not doing trades in this mock, so I'm going to take the next best quarterback in this class, and that's Matt Corral, in my opinion. Let's move on over to the Giants again. And look, when you look at the Giants' offensive line, I already mentioned I want to go double offensive line. I want to talk about their offensive line just for a second. You look at Andrew Thomas, their first-round pick, top 5 pick a couple years ago. He's played pretty well. He's ranked 19 according to Pro Football Focus, so of all tackles. So that's pretty good. It's not amazing, but I think it's tough when you have offensive linemen that just aren't doing well. The rest of their offensive linemen, aside from the center, who's also pretty good, is not ranked inside the top 60 according to PFF. And I know not everybody's a big PFF fan. I'm kind of hit and miss with my opinions on PFF, but overall, they're a pretty good resource to see kind of what range you're working with these guys. They have the worst offensive offensive line in the NFL. Obviously, there are questions about Daniel Jones. There's questions about who's going to be the coach. There's a lot of questions that are going to be answered this offseason and moving forward. But at the end of the day, offensive line is going to be a huge need no matter how we answer the rest of those questions. Let's double up on offensive linemen. I'm going to go Kenyon Green out of Texas A&M. I think Kenyon Green is honestly, I think he's among the top 2 linemen overall in the class. Obviously, you know, interior offensive line is never going to be rated as highly as your tackle. But I think in this situation, when the Giants already have their 2 tackles now with Neal and Thomas on 2 sides, whichever 2 sides, doesn't really matter how it goes. I think you need interior offensive line. As I mentioned, their guards were playing atrocious this year. Let's get Kenyon Green, and I think we have already given this offensive line a huge upgrade moving forward for whoever is the quarterback, whoever is the coach, however it all works out for the Giants. This is the building blocks of a good football team. And then we get to the Falcons, and the Falcons are an interesting team here because I really think it's kind of a best player available situation for the Falcons because there's a lot of places you could go with this, right? Honestly, at this point, I look at cornerback as the best player available, and that is Andrew Booth Jr., cornerback out of Clemson. The Falcons have already drafted a cornerback from Clemson in the first round a couple years ago in AJ Terrell. This past year was his sophomore season, and he blew up. According to PFF, he is the 2nd best cornerback in the league. I wouldn't have gone that high, but he did prove himself to be a top tier corner in this game. And hey, you have one really good corner, why not make it 2? I think Andrew Booth Jr., coming out of college, grades out better than AJ Terrell did. That's my personal opinion. I do think he is the best corner in this class, and I want to take him here for the Falcons because I think that is a huge upgrade and really creating an identity for your defense, a defense that is very tough to throw against because you have top tier corners on both sides of the field. And then moving on to the Broncos at 9, this is another team that's kind of tough to project. I don't know where this team is going moving forward. I don't know their coach yet. As of recording this video, they haven't signed a head coach. I don't know where they're going to go at quarterback. Could this be where Sam Howell goes off the board? Maybe not. I'm not quite sure. I'm not going to go that direction. I kind of just want to go best player available again. I'm pretty comfortable with their offensive line. I don't want to take an Akeem Awuwu. Again, I'm so sorry if I'm mispronouncing that name. I've looked it up and listened to it a couple of times since the last time I struggled with that name on this channel, and I don't have it off the top of my head. I'm sorry. I could go edge here with a George Karlaftis. I will talk about him a little bit later. I don't value him in the top 10. That's just not how I see him as just my personal grading. And I don't like to just put my grades on these mock drafts and decide this is how it should go, in my opinion, because what the fuck do I know? But, sorry, I shouldn't cuss, whatever. But I just don't. I feel pretty confident that this is the Kwity Paye of last year. Like Kwity Paye, great defensive prospect who went, I think, 21 overall to the Colts, if I'm not mistaken. But in that range, if I'm off by a pick or two, either way, I think that's who this is. I don't think he has just these raw physical traits that say, yeah, let's take him top 10. And maybe maybe this is just a different class. Maybe I'm completely off on that. We'll see. I think the combine and other, metrics of his physical athleticism and physical ability will definitely be a good marker to how good he is. And I could definitely change my mind on this. At this point, I'm not going to go there. All right, I'm done talking about a player I'm not going to pick. Let's talk about a player I am going to pick here. And I'm going to go corner again. They took Patrick Surtain at a similar spot in the draft last year. Why not, again, the same way I did with the Falcons? Why not, attack one of the strengths of this draft? And I do think there's a lot of really good corners at the top of this draft. Derek Stingley, rated number 4 on the Draft Network here. I don't agree with that ranking overall. I don't think he's the 4th best player in this class. I don't really even think he's the best corner or even the 2nd best corner in this class. I have him as the 3rd right now, but I'll follow along here and agree that the majority of everything I've read about him, because I've done a good bit of research on him, they disagree with me. I love the overall physical ability. I think he has the potential to be the best corner in the league. Best case scenario, he could be the best corner in the National Football League. But there was too much inconsistency over the past 2 years. This past year he was hurt, so you can kind of have to take all of the little bit of film that he put on tape with a huge grain of salt, just because, there was an injury before the season. He tried to play through it, finally gets surgery. Now he's going to the NFL. So we'll see how that goes. But moving forward, let's just move right along to the Jets here. My favorite pick here, and I've done it a couple times, I'm going to do it again. I want to go wide receiver. I want to go wide receiver with the Jets. I think add another key piece. Look, they have a good young player and Elijah Moore that they got at the top of the second round last year. You have some pieces that, like, maybe they could be good. We're still not sure what a Mims is. The dude out of I can't even remember where he came out of, but he was drafted in the second round, and I actually really liked him coming out, but he hasn't performed very well. You have a Jamison Crowder who's getting older, so I do think wide receiver is a key need. As of right now, I still have Garrett Wilson as the number one wide receiver in this class, and that's where I've gone. I think the past two times when I've drafted for the Jets, I'm gonna go a different way and go Jameson Williams, who is another top wide receiver candidate in this class, wide receiver out of Alabama. Moving on to Washington, this again is where I think, ooh, is this where we go? Is this where we go? Sam Howell? I don't know. Part of me wants to say yes. I'm not going to go that way. I am actually going to go offensive lineman here. Akeem Awunu, I think, has a very good chance of going top 10. I could see, honestly, a lot of teams going that way because I do think he's the second best tackle in this class overall. And yeah, he hasn't been drafted yet. He deserves to be drafted. Let's go that way with it. And then bringing in the Vikings at number 12. Where do I want to go with the Vikings? This is a team, again, another team in flux, doesn't have a head coach, has a huge question mark at quarterback, in my opinion. Obviously, I think Kirk Cousins is a really good player. He actually had a great year statistically, but you're paying him a lot of money. Do you go ahead and get the successor? Because I think we can kind of agree after 1 year, doesn't look like Kellen Mond is going to be the guy. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm not going to go quarterback. Again, I don't want this show to just be, are they going to draft a quarterback? Because I feel like that's a little bit derivative. I think they could go a lot of different ways. I think I am going to go defensive. I'm going to actually take one of my favorite players in the class that isn't on this list that I can see off the top of my head. But to me, Roger McCreary out of Auburn is one of my favorite players in this class. Another great cornerback. I'm going to give him to the Vikings at 12, and we'll move right along here with the Browns. And, as I'm saying that, I realize, DeMarvin Leal is still on the board out of Texas A&M. This is one of my favorite defensive linemen in the class. To me, definitely the third best pure defensive lineman in this class. Just big, physical. He played edge at Texas A&M, which is why I've watched him, because to be honest, I haven't gotten to any of the interior guys, interior defensive linemen. There's just certain position groups I haven't gotten through all the way. I've gotten through a good bit of the edge guys, though. So DeMarvin Leal, I'm so glad that I've seen him, because he is one of my favorite guys that projects to a defensive lineman, and I do think he is going to be a top 10 pick. The fact that the Browns are going to be able to get him at 13, honestly, I may have made a mistake. Maybe the Vikings would have taken him at 12. I don't know. I'm going to go Leal here and drop his fall, because I genuinely could see him going top 10. I could see a team like the Falcons wanting him at 8. I didn't go that way. Obviously, I went corner, but I mean, I really like Leal. I think he is a top player in this class. Moving on to the Ravens. Ravens are a team I do think need to go defensive line. I think this is probably where I'm going to have George go off the board. Again, I maybe don't value him quite in this range, but it's close, and I think overall maybe the top tier talent isn't quite as deep as it was last year in this class. I don't think it's a huge difference, but it's certainly a little bit of a difference, and for that reason, I'm going to take Carl Lift off the board. I'm sorry, I struggle with his last name too. My problem is I don't listen to anything when I watch these guys play, so I never hear their names said. I read about them, and I watch the game tape or film if I can get the hands on the film, and I just don't hear their names. So Carliftis, I'm pretty sure that's right. Let me know in the comments if I'm completely wrong about that. I want to get these names right, and as we get through draft season, I'll have these guys down. Moving on to the Eagles. This is a cluster of Eagles picks. You got 3 picks for the Eagles over the next 5 draft picks. Definitely need help on that defensive line. I could see them going a couple different ways. I don't value Ojabo in this range just yet. I love Travon Walker here, edge out of Georgia. I think he actually really fits what the Eagles like to do too. Walker's a guy who is very versatile, can do a lot of different things really well. I like him a whole lot out of Georgia. I'm going to take him for the Eagles, add an edge rusher there. And then what do the Eagles need? They definitely need help at corner. They really need help at corner. Let's go corner, and I'm going to take off the last guy that I have a first-round grade at corner, which sucks because I do think there's a lot of teams that could use a cornerback. I'm going to go Sauce Gardner out of Cincinnati here. His big negative is he is small. He's, I think 190 pounds, looks small and lengthy on film, but he has the explosiveness and speed to keep up with anybody, I think, at the next level. I really believe that. And I think, the biggest compliment to him is that when Nick Saban faced Cincinnati, they basically said, yeah, we're really not going to worry about the corners. They have good corners. They have good secondary. Let's not try and throw the ball. Let's just run it on them. I think that just shows a sign of respect. And yeah, I think he played really well in that game. Overall, I do think he is a top corner and deserves to be a first round pick, top half of the first round, just squeaked in there in the top half at 16 overall. Moving on to the Chargers here. I look at the Chargers as a team who, I really do think they could make the same kind of jump that the Bengals made this past year. Obviously, the Bengals went from a top 5 pick to, now they're going to be playing in the championship game against the Chiefs. But I think the Chargers are pretty close to making that kind of jump. I love a lot of their team. Let's add an offensive lineman here. Rashawn Slater was a huge hit for them last year, getting them, I think, like 12th overall, and you have arguably a top 10 tackle in the league already. Storm Norton is the weak point on that offensive line as a whole. Let's replace him, and I'm gonna go Charles Cross here. I don't love it. Actually, let me see if I like any of the other offensive linemen a little more. I like Charles Cross. I do think he'll be a first-round corner for sure, first-round offensive lineman for sure. I'm not going to sit here and say I've watched a ton of these guys. I really haven't gotten super far down the offensive tackle, list here. I'm going to go Charles Cross overall. I do think he's the best guy. I think he's just a little bit undersized, and that's like the big negative for him. It definitely scares me when I'm looking at an offensive lineman and saying, you're undersized. Like, that's just not something I want to say about that particular type of player. I'm going to look at the Saints here, and again, I hate that I keep doing this, but a quarterback definitely is appealing when there's still a Sam Howell who is the last true first-round quarterback on the board. But man, we have a huge need, and that is wide receiver. Last time they took an Ohio State wide receiver, worked out pretty well, although he's becoming a little bit of a diva as of late. But let's go here and take Garrett Wilson, my personal number 1 wide receiver. I really do see this going the way it's gone as far as like wide receivers in the first round. Been a little bit light, obviously Garrett Wilson got passed over a good bit in this mock draft. I can see that happening. I really can. So here, taking wide receiver for the Saints, and this is like a dream scenario for the Saints, I feel like. Garrett Wilson fits their scheme perfectly. I think they would be foaming at the mouth if this happened. That is an absolute dream scenario for them. Eagles here, one more pick, gave them a corner, gave them an edge. Where do I want to go here? I'm going to take Jordan Davis here, and I like I said already, I haven't watched him yet. I haven't gotten to a whole lot of the interior defensive linemen. It's my next position group that I want to get to. So Jordan Davis is at the top of the list of guys that I'm going to watch. I'm taking him because I do think the Eagles can use another, it's their strength of their team. It's what their defense has been about for years, having a good, rotation defensive lineman. So adding an interior defensive lineman there does make sense for them. We have the Steelers, and again, I do think this is a dream scenario for the Steelers, getting a young quarterback, and it doesn't have to be, the heir to a Ben Roethlisberger. This is a lot of pressure to put on a Sam Howell, who 19 other teams have passed on him. So in this scenario, anyway, there's definitely some deficiencies to his game, but I do think he's a solid quarterback who can do everything really well. And I think if he can grow in a system, yeah, it does make sense. I could definitely see him being a starting quarterback and being a really good one. I really do believe he has some high upside. So we're going to go quarterback here. Even if they already have a veteran and they're drafting for the future, either way, Sam Howell makes a whole lot of sense to the Steelers. And there's just no way, however this draft works out, there's no way there aren't 3 quarterbacks drafted inside the top 20, because to me, any one of those top 3 are sitting there at 20 for the Steelers. they're gone. It's guaranteed. I genuinely don't think when trades are involved and all these other things involved that Sam Howell will still be sitting there. I would imagine, if the Steelers are sitting there at 11 or, even with the Jets at 10 saying, man, let's not risk it. Let's go get our guy, assuming that's who they like. They would probably make that trade. That's what the Bears did last year, and pretty much almost the exact same trade, moved up from 20 to 19 or whatever it was, or to 11 or 10, whatever it was last year, traded up with the Giants. Anyway, let's move forward here. Got the Patriots. Patriots do have a big need at corner. I don't have a cornerback that I value. I already know that for a fact. Have need at linebacker. Maybe I could give him Devin Lloyd. I think wide receiver makes a whole lot of sense here. Chris Olave makes a whole lot of sense. They have this young guy, Mac Jones. They are a run first football team. I understand that, but you got to have some weapons on the outside, and they have some good pieces. They have some good depth wide receivers. They definitely went out in last year's free agency pool and grabbed some solid pieces that can be your number 2 or number 3. Chris Olave can be your number 1. The fact that he's sitting here, I think he would be pretty upset about, because he declined to come out last year when he, I think, definitely would have gone around this same range last year, and now he's going, in my mock draft anyway, 21 overall. I think that would be a big disappointment for him, but overall, I think this is a good pick for the Patriots. Chris Olave, a really, really good player, elite route runner, which I think Bill will really, really like over there in New England. Let's move on to the Raiders. They need help on that defensive line. I'm gonna give him David Ajabu out of Michigan. Again, another guy who I do think is being a little bit overvalued a little bit. I don't know. I like him. He definitely has some positives to his game. I do think he was helped out a little bit by Hutchinson being on the other side of him. I do think he's being a little bit over projected right now. I don't really see him as a top 15. I think this is like the peak of where he could go. I could be totally wrong on that. This is my opinion. I'm allowed to have my opinion. I know that I don't align with the rest of the draft community at this point with where he should go. To me, this is a little bit as early as I could possibly see him going. That's why in my mock draft, I'm going to take him here, and that'll be his ceiling, in my opinion. Again, could be wrong on that. Don't quote this as gospel. I do put a lot of time and work into it, so I feel like I know a little bit of what I'm talking about. But every year the draft is crazy and different. Nobody can project it, so none of us really know at the end of the day. But I know I'm a little bit alone on that opinion that David Ojabo a little bit overvalued, overhyped, whatever you want to call it. Cardinals here, I think this is a little bit of a worst case scenario for the Cardinals, man. I mean, you look at cornerback, there's nobody at cornerback that I'm going to value in the first round at this point. I've already taken the top 4, and again, I haven't gotten all the way through my cornerback list. I've watched a handful of the guys that are on this list that you can see on the screen. None of them are first round corners, in my personal opinion. I could be wrong about that. I could just, maybe Trent McDuffie. I haven't watched him. Maybe he's the guy. I don't know. I'm not going to go that direction with it. And then you look at edge. Let's look at edge rushers. Man, I like Jamin Johnson out of Florida State. I really do. I think he has all the physical tools, and there's a lot of explosion in his game. I think he actually is a guy who will kind of fly up the draft boards. I think he's a guy just based on potential and upside, could be a guy who goes in the first round. I don't know if that's where I want to go with this, because that does feel like a little bit of a reach. But I'm not going to go wide receiver. I'm not going to go. I haven't watched a lot of the safeties here, so I don't know if that's a move, and they don't really need a safety that bad. Man, I think I am going to go Johnson here. A little bit of a reach out of Florida State. Some will call me a homer. I am a Florida State fan, but I don't think I'm a homer on this pick. I really do think he is, a physical specimen who has a lot of upside to his game. And I really do think he's going to be one of those guys that goes in the first round, back in the first round. I think, again, this is probably his ceiling as far as how high he can go. I know he's not getting the amount of hype as some of the other edge rushers in this class, but I like him a whole lot, and I'm going to take him right here. Let's draft him. All right, and then we get to the Cowboys, one of the toughest teams for me to project. Another team I could really see them, needing interior defensive line, needing some big guys. And, maybe there's some big guys that I don't know about that are perfect fits for the Cowboys. I haven't watched them, like I said, and I don't want to just start speaking out my butt here. I'm going to go Devin Lloyd, linebacker out of Utah. He's a real good player. Let's go ahead and move right along to the Buffalo Bills, and I just got done watching the absolutely amazing game against the Chiefs, where I mean their entire season came down to a coin flip. Chiefs were on the right side of that coin flip, go down, score a touchdown. One of the more impressive players in the entire football league right now, and Josh Allen didn't even get a chance to touch the ball in overtime. That's a little disappointing for them, obviously, but at the end of the day, had a great season and played what I considered, that was my Super Bowl. That was an absolutely amazing game. And then where do you go with that, man? I can obviously see offensive line, defensive line. I know they went defensive line early and often in last year's class, so would they do that again? Maybe, but in this mock, I don't really have anybody that I value on that defensive line side of the ball. Tyler Linderbaum out of Iowa is a good piece, and I could definitely see them going that way. Actually, I do think that's where I'm going to end up going. I was thinking wide receiver, but Gabriel Davis went off for 4 touchdowns in the last game. He looked like a legit number 2 to Stephon Diggs, who really didn't show up. I think he had like 7 yards against the Chiefs in that game, like 3 catches for 7 yards, so he was pretty much neutralized. Gabriel Davis came up big with 4 touchdowns and a whole ton of yards. I don't know what his final yards total was, but I would have probably gone wide receiver if it weren't for that game, but like that just put this kind of taste in my mouth where it's like, oh yeah, they might have 2 legit wide receivers. They do have Emmanuel Sanders, who's pretty much at the end of his career at this point. He became a non-factor nearing the second half of the season. Cole Beasley, I think, nearing the end of his career as well. I think you could say a lot of the same things about him. So wide receiver does feel like a position they could go towards, but Linderbaum is here out of Iowa. He's a good interior offensive lineman, so I'm going to go that way with it. And then we have the Titans here, another team that lost in the divisional round of the playoffs, a heartbreaking loss to the Bengals. I'm going to go defense. I think this team could go a couple different ways. I think cornerback is ultimately their biggest need at the end of the day. I know it says linebacker is the biggest need on this list. I actually go corner. We've talked about it a couple times already. I just don't see a corner that I value in this range. So I'm going to go linebacker. I'm going to go Nakobe Dean, linebacker out of Georgia, grabbing a lot of Georgia defensive linemen because that defense was ridiculously good this past year. And this is just another piece. I look at, Zach Cunningham came over from the Texans and he played really, really well down the stretch. But you look at Rashaan Evans, a guy who didn't get that 5th-year option. I actually really thought a good linebacker out of Alabama who I really I've said on my podcast a handful of times, I don't really understand why he didn't get that 5th-year option. I'm not 100% sure what the Titans see that I don't see, but the Titans watch a lot more Titans film than I do. So, they probably know a little bit more about their team. They didn't feel good with Rashaan Evans. Looks like they're wanting to go in a different direction. Nakobe Dean might be that answer to them at that linebacker position, which is certainly a big need. And then moving on to the Bucks, 27 overall. I look at this team. I'm actually gonna go wide receiver. I feel pretty strongly that this feels like a good place that they could go. You look at where they're at, right? Obviously, we know the Antonio Brown situation. I'm not going to really get into that. He was an extra piece on a really good wide receiver unit, but going into the playoffs, they didn't have Antonio Brown. Godwin was out for the year, and it was really just Mike Evans. And Godwin was, he's a guy who's probably going to get a big payday in free agency. I know he got hurt, and it might hurt his chances to make some money, but at the end of the day, I don't think it will. We know the talent there. I would be surprised if Tampa Bay can afford to keep him. So that's why I'm gonna look here at the wide receivers options. My number 1 wide receiver on the board right now is Drake London at this point. I'll be honest, I haven't watched all of these guys. I've watched the majority of them. Drake London I really like out of USC. He's a guy who I have done a draft profile on. And I actually compared him to a Mike Evans. I think he has the potential to become a Mike Evans at the end of the day. I think that's what his ceiling could be anyway. Let's move on to the Green Bay Packers. A lot of questions to be answered this offseason. What do I do here, man? I don't know. Let's give him an offensive lineman, Trevor Penning. I think at the end of the day, this pick doesn't matter. It matters if Aaron Rodgers is going to be there next year. And it matters if Aaron Rodgers can win a playoff game. Man, a little disappointed this past week against the 49ers in a game where, man, all he needed was one big offensive drive in the second, third, or fourth quarter, and they probably win that game. I'm sorry, I know I shouldn't go off topic there. This is mock draft. This is not divisional round wrap up or anything, but that just frustrating game for me. Bengals here at 29, still in the playoffs. Such a good team. Got to go offensive line. That's their one need. They gave up 9 sacks to the Titans. Makes a whole lot of sense that they would go offensive line. They just got beat up. Now a lot of it was schemed, but I mean they struggled a whole lot. I'm gonna go top offensive lineman on the board. Again, I'll be 1,000% honest. Haven't watched this guy, but I'm just gonna take the top offensive lineman off the board and move right along to the Dolphins, who they were out of the playoffs a long time ago, but they are picking 30th overall because they ended up with the 49ers first round pick in that three pick swap that happened last year, where they went from 3 to 6 and the Eagles went from 6 to 11 or 12 or whatever it was, and the 49ers went up to 3 to draft the quarterback. The Dolphins here, I think this is a good football team. I don't value any of the offensive linemen, which I do think would be the biggest need. Drafted a wide receiver last year, and I'm okay with their wide receiver situation. I wish Brian Flores was still the head coach of this football team, but he's not. So I'm just going to go with the position that makes the most sense to me. I am so anti-running back in the first round, but at this range, it makes a little bit more sense. I'm a big, running back in the second round guy. Like, I think you can find a lot of value there. I'm going to take my favorite running back on the board. Isaiah Spiller is my number 1. I know the Michigan State running back, Kenneth Walker, is a great player, and he is my number 2 right now. And I might ultimately change that at the end of the day, but right now I have Isaiah Spiller as my number 1. I have a draft profile on him as well. If you're interested in watching it, it is out on my channel right now. I'm going to take Isaiah Spiller and move on to the 31st pick, where we have the Lions. And I have no idea where to go with this. At the end of the draft, it's amazing that we're picking 30 and 31, and you have 2 teams that have a good bit of needs, especially the Lions. But hey, they have the Rams pick, and they are picking here in this mock draft. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give him Desmond Ridder, quarterback out of Cincinnati. I really like this kid out of Cincinnati. I think he has a lot of talent. There's definitely some issues to his game. There's some deficiencies there, but he has a ton of arm talent. I would say he has the second most pure arm talent behind a Kenny Pickett here. And I do think that give him a couple years to learn behind somebody. You have a good solid quarterback. He's not going to blow you away starting right now, but I think he's a good placeholder for you to build a team around and then put a really good future of the franchise type of quarterback in after you're done rebuilding around him. I think Desmond Ridder, maybe let him wait in the wings and be that guy. That's maybe a weird take for a team that will need help, and there's going to be a lot of questions. When is Ridder getting in? And maybe that's a good reason not to draft a quarterback here, because he's the type of guy I want him to sit behind a very qualified quarterback and not have to get questions of, is he coming in? Because he needs a year. He needs a year or two. I really believe that. But I do think he has a ton of upside and could be a legit star in this league if it goes the right way for him. And we've come to the end of this mock draft. Guys, before I make this final pick for the Chiefs, please let me know what you think in the comments, where you want your team to go, all these things. It really does matter. With the Giants in this mock draft, I picked based on a conversation I had in my comments, with a Giants fan, or I think he was a Giants fan, but he was talking about the Giants and what the Giants should do. I would love to have that kind of conversation with all 32 different fan bases, right? So let me know where you're at with that. I really am curious, and tell me if you think I'm wrong or stupid for some of these picks. That's okay. It's early on in the season, and hey, we're all kind of just trying to learn and figure it out. Let's make this final pick. What do you give the team that has everything? Why not another weapon? Burks out of Arkansas, really good player, big frame guy. Makes a lot of sense that this would be, where they go with it, because, why not, add another weapon alongside Hill and Kelsey and, just another style of player. They already have a couple speed guys in Hill and Hardman. This can be a guy who replaces your, Pringle, who got a little bit of play this past year. I could see him, fitting into that role. Maybe year 1 not being a huge factor, but then moving through, year 2, year 3, 3 becoming a bigger and bigger factor in the game. All right, I'm going to end it right there. Thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. I do have multiple mock draft Mondays every single Monday on this channel. I have multiple draft profiles coming out every single week. So stick around for all that. Hit the subscribe button. If you are interested in the NFL draft, this is where you need to be. Love the NFL draft. Love talking about the NFL draft. Hit me up in the comments. I'll be back next week. Peace.